Good morning, City of Paramount, to the residents of Paramount. We thank you for tuning in to our community unity meeting. Also to the Pirates, which we support our local sports teams in the city in every way we can. Our little group here is to bridge our city together through the turmoil that's going on in our nation throughout the world. And again, with your help and support, we can have a city that's full of unity, full of love and harmony. We invite you to be a part of our meetings and a part of our sessions to find ways to bridge the gaps between the races. We know that there are so many problems between people, and as I share with the committee members, there are bad people in every race, bad people in law enforcement, bad people in every organization, there are bad people in churches. But again, we're trying to find a way to bridge those gaps so we can have a city that's full of love, harmony, and peace. So with your help, your support, we will be able to bridge these gaps between us and come together in unity. As pastor of New Commandment Baptist Church in the city of Paramount, I've been in the city of Paramount 45 years. Grew up in Arkansas, which I did with racial prejudice, segregation, and many had to run for my life, believe it or not. But by the grace of God, I'm in the state of California, the city of Paramount. God's been good to me to be a part of this city, to watch the city grow over the years. When I first came to Paramount, there were many things going on. There were cattle farms, there were a lot of distraction by gangs and all that, but so far, it's been cleaned up. So here today to make sure that our city's still on the right path as to grow as a city, as a leaders. So introducing myself again, I am the pastor of New Commandment Church in the city of Paramount. I have Tony Warfield introduce himself, and Dr. Linda Timmons, then Captain David Springler.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Linda Timmons. I'm also a resident of the city of Paramount. I was not raised in Paramount. I was actually raised in Compton, but my parents saw that they wanted a better life for my sister and I went to school. I was the first black that went to Palisades High School, and I experienced racism there, but overall, I received a good education, so I thank my parents for that. I furthered my education through different colleges and graduated finally from Liberty University and received a PhD in psychology. I also have a business. I'm the CEO of the Advocates for Family Unity. That is a child and youth psychology business that offers the parents and the children a chance to unify, to get back together. These are for children who have been separated from their parents. Also, I'm an ambassador for City of Paramount. I was a commissioner for the Public Works Commission. I'm a Red Cross volunteer, and I have been a volunteer for over 15 years. Thank you.
My name is Tony Warfield, and I'm a fairly recent resident here in Paramount. I actually was born, like the pastor, in Helena, Arkansas, and back in these days, 1971, my mother thought it would be a good idea to get us out of there because of some of the challenges, racial challenges, crime, and everything else. And we came to California, and we had a new life here. As I grew up, we were moving from place to place to place, and then I ended up joining the military, which once again, I moved from place to place to place. And so many years later, in all my years, I always tried to find a home. And by the grace of God, I actually found that home here in Paramount. And during my time here in Paramount, I've been embraced by quite a few members of the community, the business community, the social community. And when I have seen some of the challenges that have been happening in the city, I just thought it'd be a good idea for us to try to do something to try to bring the city together. So I'm very excited and honored to be here with this panel. And I'm actually a financial services professional where I do my best to try to help people protect their assets and their life. And it's kind of a crusade for me because so many challenges are happening to people right now. We're losing their jobs, and they are having challenges maintaining their homes and maintaining their families. And I want to be able to be a part of anything that'll help people come together and be able to secure their families and help to protect the community we have here in Paramount. Thank you.
Also, we will be working with the Sheriff's Department to bridge them into our group that they can kind of identify some issues that's going to the Sheriff's Department. They can relate to us how to improve the community relationship with the Sheriff's Department. oftentimes have a bad outlook of sheriffs, but they're not all bad. We're not all good either. So, but again, David Springle's here to represent the say word for the Sheriff's Department.
Good morning. Thank you, Pastor. I am David Springle. I am the unit commander, captain at Lakewood Station. We proudly serve the city of Paramount, and we are part of the community of Paramount. I'm humbly here to be a part of the unity in the community so we can grow in our partnership with the city and build it to be the best city possible. And I'm really thankful for the opportunity to be a part of it.
Thank you, Captain. Again, now I want to make mention that we also had one of our Latino representatives from community here, Perez. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it here today, but again, perhaps in the next meeting, he will be with us. Also, we're inviting other Spanish ministers to be with us. Our first question today is, what forms are we being used to continue this conversation? A YouTube live stream with no proper community engagement isn't going to cut it. We need interactive meetings where people can talk to each other, even still by virtual. But again, we will hopefully in the next meeting have more open avenues for you to communicate your question to the city, to this committee rather, where we can go with the things that we find that we need to work on to bridge our community together as a unit. Again, it's very important to get your response from the public to help us to understand what we need to do to try to bring all of us together in this city. There are many people in this city, many different races. Our job is just to bring those things and those energies together. Also to present it to the city, what the city can do to help us bridge this community. But again, we do not make policies for the city. We're not into the administration of the city. Again, make sure that's clear, that we're just here to offer suggestions to the city to bring our community together. This time, Dr. Timmons, please. Dr. Timmons.
Thank you. The first question that we received from our citizens says, in relation to the systemic racism issue, is this being addressed because it is a real problem in our city? The answer is, I would first say thank you for your question. As we know, the last few months have really been a tragic and troubling time in the United States. We are hurting as a people. George Floyd's murder and the systemic racism that continues to exist in the United States dating back way over 400 years ago has once again reared its ugly head, and it has brought forward and touched all of our minds. Racial injustice is all around us, along with coping with a global pandemic and the loss of businesses, jobs, and some of us have even lost relatives. I know that what is happening around our country and the world right now is not totally indicative of our city of Paramount. But we have our issues here too. And yes, shamefully, racism exists. It exists right here in the city of Paramount. Maybe not in the same way that is profound and exercised in other cities, but yes, we do have a form of racism in our city. However, I'm encouraged by the actions taken by our city leadership. By reestablishing this committee, our city leaders have taken the steps to provide a platform to give the residents of this great city an opportunity to support and listen to each other, no matter what our backgrounds are, no matter what our color is, or where we come from. Now, more than ever, we need to be siding on the side of humanity. We need to stand shoulder to shoulder with each other in support of facing our various situations. There's no questions that we are different in a lot of aspects. We may be different in color, different in religion, different in our beliefs, but please, let's not let our differences define who we are and divide us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Timmons. Again, I just want to emphasize the fact that we do have other Latino members come to our committee that unfortunate things happen. They cannot be here today. So at this time, Tony Warfield.
All right, thank you, Pastor. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. The next question is, if unity in a community is meant to be a series of series of serious discussions about systemic racism, why does its mission and values try to circumvent or dismiss conversations about race? Why is there a need to say it's not always about race when these conversations derive from a need to address systemic racism and how it affects Black people in our country? Our mission and values are not intended to they're intended to create a respectful environment allowing for open expression of thoughts regarding race or other topics. Nowhere in the statement does it intend to avoid the topic of race. In fact, that's what we're here for today. The statement, "it's not always about race," does not suggest a contradiction to the racial issue. It speaks to the fact that in many instances, a person or group acting alone and performing unfortunate actions does not represent any particular race. That person or group is just guilty of being bad people. I am sure we can all agree that bad people come in all sizes and shades. That said, we have to be careful not to paint everyone with the same brush. We have to create a more unified look at people, and we must also not let what happens nationally affect how we treat our neighbors. Paramount is not without its challenges, of course, just like Dr. Timmons said, but we hope during this series of discussions that together we can come up with solutions to the challenges that we face in this community, and that requires all of our participation. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Again, we apologize for Jerry Perez. We hope to be with us, not here today, but again, he would join us at a later date. Dr. Timmons?
The next question that we have, it says, do Latin people face similar challenges as addressed by Black Lives Matter? And that's a great question. In relation to the systemic racism issue, is this only because of the Black Lives Matter movement? Truthfully, no. The answer to your question is actually we are neighbors. We are all feeling the same crunch. If I may, I would like to explain. In 2016, a similar panel entitled Unity and the Community was established, a committee similar to this committee that we have here in the city of Paramount. And that committee was also to review and address a tide of troublesome events that were taking place on a national level at that time. However, I certainly do not wish to diminish the horrific situations that have taken place in our country lately, and by now, most are aware of the brutal and unjustifiable killing of George Floyd, as we spoke of earlier. This incident, along with a series of similar incidents across the country in recent history, sparked a national outcry amongst Black, amongst Hispanics, among whites, and others. They all joined together in protest. White and others, some positive and some not so positive. However, this current panel of Unity in the Community is meant to establish a new dialogue and a series of discussions on the issues of racism, police relations, community involvement, and youth engagement. Thank you.
Also along those lines, we're willing to establish like a block club or a neighborhood community awareness, where in each section of the city there be someone to represent that city to present your ideas to this committee, so we can kind of address some issues that involved in your area where you live. But again, it's to bridge all of us together. That's the purpose of our meeting. Dr. Timmons. Dr. Timmons, next topic.
Okay. The next question says, a council member ended her statement on the Black Lives Matter protest with a very clear all lives matter sentiment. What message does this send to the community? We are all having difficult conversations and discussions trying to find the right ways to support those issues that we know are important to all of us, as well as supporting the strangers that we see suffering, be they Black, white, brown, or any other ethnic group. Truthfully told, we are all created equal and endowed by our Creator. And so all lives do matter in a very real sense. So all of us are created equal. But please let's not forget that several of the men who founded this country under the idea that all of us are created equal were slave owners themselves. Now, what we learn in dialogue is that it isn't that only Black Lives Matter, nor is it that Black lives matter more than other lives, but Black lives should matter just as any other life matters, and it should matter in all aspects. While all lives should matter, Black lives have been disregarded time and time again. And if all lives mattered, we, our nation, would not be in the situation we are in at this time. Martin Luther King said, "A threat to injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." I am encouraged and fearlessly believe that a positive dialogue, education, understanding, determination, and open-mindedness, we as a community will be educated in our dialogue and our understanding of sensitive issues. Only then will we be able to stand united. Only then will we begin to see things never before imagined or understood. Education and knowledge is the passport to the future. And by educating ourselves on the sensitive issues that are surrounding our country and our cities right now, that is the most powerful way to change the future. When we know better, we do better.
So as you can see, we're doing our best to reach out to all areas of this community to bring us together as a community. Again, not respective of race, color. Again, we do emphasize again, it's not about black lives, it's about everybody's life. All are precious in God's sight. Tony?
Thank you, Pastor. The next question, why do the mission and values of unity and community say that it will prevent people from distracting from community issues? How is that not censorship? We have no intention of censoring any discussions. We definitely don't. We want full participation. Yet people intent on disrupting these discussions will diminish the opportunity for solutions to be found. However, you are correct. The word prevent should not be used, and we hope to discourage people from distracting from the community issues. We will make the necessary changes to the mission and value statement to reflect these changes. Yet we hope those participating will limit disruptive behavior and allow those who value these discussions to receive the information. I would add that as stated in the mission and value statement, we welcome all views, even views that don't agree with some of the answers that we share today. Whether we agree or not, we hope this series of discussions will help each of us gain more perspective and appreciation for our neighbors and other members of the community, including the leadership and including, of course, law enforcement. Thank you.
All the changes will come through us working together as a unit. And again, it's so important for us to understand that as we go down this road, it's about all of us working together. Again, we're not here to make suggestions to the city. We're here to make suggestions to the community how we can better our city. Again, we will not get involved with civil matters. We will not try to pass legislation to the city to get them to do things. But this, again, this is a community affair, so we hope you all will work with us. What exactly will be done to address the race issue with more ethnic courses added to the curriculum? And will you create space to denounce racism? Yes, what is the plan of action? We haven't talked about this. Those things come in our next meeting, hopefully. Again, this is the first meeting that we've had with this group. We had preliminary meetings to discuss topics we want to bring to the community. Also remind us again that as about 4 or 5 years ago, I brought to the city a plan to unify the city, and we are now reviving that plan to make it better. As Dr. Simmons and Tony Warfield has said, that there are things going on that we're not pleased with. And again, we want to broaden the panel so it's just not us black people up here. It's involving the whole city of Paramount. Yes. That's our goal, to bring all of us together to unify this city to we be a model to other cities. And to cities that are watching us, we pray that you get us some thoughts for your cities to improve the relationship so we all can bridge the cities together. We become one unit. Dr. Timmons?
Okay, the next question. The values of the Black Lives Matter movement are quite specific. Does everyone here understand the core values and principles of this movement? And thank you for that question. My answer is the Black Lives Matter movement emerged 4 years ago, whose mission was to build local power and to intervene when violence was inflicted on Black individuals and Black communities by the state and vigilantes. It is now known that as Black Lives Matter Global Network, and it is now a movement committed to struggling together and to imagining and creating a world free of anti-Blackness, where every Black person has the social, economic, and political power to thrive. Now, with that statement coming directly from the Black Lives Matter site, it gives credence to the fact that this is a great time for not only Black people, but for all people who take a look at themselves and make a change. Without falling back on our heels, Black people alike must make some changes. Like Michael Jackson says, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. Humility has blossomed and people are listening. Hearts are open. This is the time that listening and open hearts can definitely make a change. Our city leaders are listening and willing to make changes in our community with the humanity of decency to make our city a better place. That can only mean beneficial benefits for the betterment of all of us in this community. No one will agree on everything, and that's understood, and things will not be solved in one day. But we can never get finished if we never get started. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony?
Thank you, Pastor. This next question, honestly, we could do a panel on this the whole hour. But I try to make my answer as brief as possible. Could you please explain what anti-Blackness is and how do we perpetuate it? What is white supremacy and how do we perpetuate that? Quite simply, anti-Blackness is the opposition and hostility towards Black people. Imagine hearing your doors locked when you walk down the street, or see a woman clutching her purse, or you can walk through a store and someone's following you around, making sure you're not shoplifting or something like that. You can imagine that'll make you a little bit uncomfortable. Let me see where I'm at. These are mild cases, of course, but most of the time people do not even realize they are doing it. The negative programming we receive all day, every day makes even Black people hostile to each other. And I think Dr. Timmons touched on that. And we take our cues from each other. If I speak harshly to Pastor Jones or Dr. Timmons, and someone else in the audience or someone else is present, they might, start doing exactly the same thing. So you can imagine that when you're watching news programs or you're watching something going on in your city and you see so much hostility with people, that becomes the norm, especially when your children are watching, because your children, they will grow up watching how you treat other people. So, of course, in a Black family, I can say we've had some challenges in our Black families before where you have shared hostility, and our children are growing up and seeing that, and that gets perpetuated. So it's unfortunate, but it's true, and as parents, we're required to do a better job of making sure we help our children understand how to treat people better. White supremacy, however, is a bit more detailed. You look it up in a dictionary and it reads, a person believes that the white race is inherently superior to other races and that white people should have control over people of other races. This thinking is taught to each generation and appears to gain support as hate speech and negative political rhetoric continue across our country. Now, of course, this is a perspective I don't agree with, yet the idea of anti-Blackness and white supremacy comes from ignorance. People need to become more educated on the cultures they do not understand. They must also be honest about some of the challenges created within their own communities. Just like I said earlier, we want to, it's unfortunate, but we want to point our finger at what everyone else is doing wrong, everyone else's challenges, and while we're so busy pointing our finger at someone else, we're not realizing and we don't accept some of the challenges that we have in our own communities. I would like to give a couple of book suggestions that I thought was very interesting. And I might get in trouble for this one with Dr. Timmons, but I read a book called White Trash. It's the 400-year untold story of class in America by Nancy Eisenberg. And because of our interest of time, I definitely want you to read that. I'm not going to read any of that book. I didn't bring it because I knew I would have been excited to read that. Another book is The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness by Michelle Alexander. These two books, they're kind of difficult to read. They are. They're difficult to read because for the mass incarceration of Black people, obviously as a Black male, that is something that's near and dear to my heart. It's hurtful, actually. But the book White Trash, it really helps you get a better understanding of why some white people feel the way that they do. And because you have that extra information, it helps you know how to deal with, if it makes sense, deal with them a little bit better and appreciate their point of view. And you can actually work with them and try to help them work through some of the challenges that they might have. So, and if you don't mind, Pastor, I'm gonna go ahead and take the next question for Jerry Perez.
Jerry Perez.
Yes, sir. Does the Latin community identify with the Black Lives Matter movement? Many signs show that Latins have been supportive of the Black Lives Matter movement, as they also want change to their community. Challenges Blacks face in this country are also felt by the Latin community. In fact, many of those challenges affect the Latin community even more so when considering hard issues like immigration. The Black Lives Matter movement highlights social injustice that is not exclusive to the Black community. It raises awareness of the challenges Blacks face in this nation with the intention of ensuring Black people are treated fairly and equally. This is important to the Latin community as well. And I've had discussions with Spanish-speaking people and members of the Latin community, and they definitely identify with the movement. I mean, can you hear me? I'm sorry. Thank you, Pastor. But we recently had a protest, and I'm very thankful that everybody participated in the protest. But the protest had about 70 people there, and of that 70 people, the majority of them were Latin people. And when I stood there, I really realized, how powerful this thing is. And I was like, well, you know what? We actually have something here. We can actually do something. We can make a change. And I thank the Latin community of Paramount and all our neighboring cities for participating. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony. Again, just to touch on that, we empathize with the Hispanic community because we can feel their hurt because, again, we have gone through some trials as a people. And again, growing up in the South, if I had time to attribute this time tomorrow, talking about the things I endured in my growing up in the South. And again, so we have a great concern for our Latino brothers and sisters to share with them their burden, their hurt, their pain. They don't get to do their credit for. And again, as we look at the city, we know that we will be better off. So I'm understanding that we need to work together to do great things to bring our community together, whether we're Black, white, brown, whatever. We need to really, really, really do some praying for our city, for our leaders, for our country. The system is not designed to help those of lower color. The system is really designed for the upper echelon. But again, we see now what's going on in our country with the voting that's going on. We see the things going on that are not right. But again, we need to understand the importance of knowing that prayer changes things. So I say to all of us, whatever color we are, let's pray this thing will soon change and we get back on course in God's divine will. Dr. Timmons?
Thank you, Pastor Jones. The next question is, can we talk about why Black Lives Matter is important? What does it mean? I think it is important to acknowledge that it is an organization, but the movement is so much bigger than that. And we cannot tell ourselves that saying Black Lives Matter is complicated or trying to tie it to political issues. And for the citizen that submitted this, thank you very much for your question. And my answer is Black Lives Matter, and it's very important in all aspects. I am a Black woman. I know you can see that. So it matters to me. It matters to our committee. Black Lives Matter speaks to the livelihood and the justifiable treatment of all human beings, including people of color. It is a network of connections all over the world, and it advocates against police violence towards Black people as well as various other unjust policies. This is an important time for us to support each other and to stand united as Blacks, as Latinos, as whites, and other ethnic groups, standing together in the call for justice. But more than that, if we really talk about the importance of Black Lives Matter movement, we must first take a look at ourselves and talk about our individual involvement and ask ourselves, what are we doing to actively disrupt the inequality in the system? Are we supporting Black businesses? Where are we spending our money? There is power in the penny. Are we investing in businesses that support employment for all people and those that support reform and racial equality? Another important factor, we must teach the young children about our Black history. Our Black history is very important to all of us, just as the history and culture of other ethnic groups. The importance of recognizing that all ethnic groups are important and that we all have a history that we're proud of, some of it that we're not so proud of. There's a lot of positive education in the African American history, some of which are inventions that most people don't even know about. Like Otis Boykin, he invented the heart pacemaker. Marie Van Britten Brown, she invented the first home security system. Lonnie Johnson, he invented the Super Soaker toy, something all kids love. David Crothwaite invented the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, something that we're all using today, and so many more inventors. Teaching ourselves and encouraging and teaching our youth about other cultures is the catalyst to improving our future. This is how we use our power to make a change, to show that there is really meaning in the movement of change.
Thank you, Dr. Timmons. Just to add the fact to the race relationship that we are facing in our community, and to give more support to the Latino community. Many of us saw the terrible thing happening at the border, young kids being separated from their parents being herded like animals. And again, if we have any heart, we have to have compassion for those folk who are still struggling to get to a place where they call a land they can work for honest living. ICE and the different departments that are destroying families, again, it's not part of what we envision in America. It's important for us to understand and feel the hurt of other people. And again, this is why I say it's not a Black thing. This is an all of us thing, that we come together as one to support each other and to pray that God will deal with the folk who are so evil to other mankind. And again, I thank God for this committee and those who are working with us, the city and the sheriff departments who work to make things better in our city. Again, so let's just pray that things would change at the border, that those folk have an opportunity we have. Again, nobody can explain to us directly what we came through as slaves coming to this country. So I can identify with what the Latino people are trying to do to get to this country to make a decent living for themselves. This is their home as well as anybody else's home. Tony?
I agree with that, Pastor. Thank you for that. Right now, we have a significant crisis going on in our world today. With the current pandemic, so many families being disrupted. I myself have lost 6 people so far, and a number of coworkers have all fallen due to this pandemic. And when you think about so many different families that have been affected by this, it's hurtful to see some of the political rhetoric that's out there that kind of distorts people's thinking about why this pandemic is affecting our nation. And one of the questions that we have, are Black and brown people more susceptible to COVID-19 because of their race? So I had my personal opinion about that, but I thought it'd be a good idea for me to do a little bit more research. So to answer this question, I looked up the data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention discussing the coronavirus. They discuss factors that contribute to increased risk, for example, housing, healthcare access, and utilization and healthcare utilization and occupation. For housing, some people from racial and ethnic minority groups live in crowded conditions that make it more challenging to follow prevention strategies. In some cultures, it is common for family members of many generations to live in one household. In addition, growing and disproportionate unemployment rates for some racial and ethnic minority groups during the COVID-19 pandemic may lead to greater risk of eviction and homelessness or sharing of housing. As far as healthcare access and utilization, people from racial and ethnic minority groups are more likely to be uninsured than non-Hispanic whites. Healthcare also can also be limited for those groups by many of other factors, such as the lack of transportation, childcare, or ability to take time off work. Communication and language barriers, cultural differences between patients and providers, and historical and current discrimination in healthcare systems. And for occupation, people from some racial and ethnic minority groups are disproportionately represented in essential work settings, such as healthcare facilities. And let me tell you, those healthcare workers, I have 3 nurses in my family right now, and they go to work every day dedicated, and I'm very thankful for them, but I'm even more thankful that they come home to their families. Farm workers, factory workers, grocery store clerks, and public transportation. Some people who work in these settings have more chances to be exposed to the virus that causes COVID-19 due to several factors, such as close contact with the public or other workers, not being able to work from home, and not having paid sick days. Other factors include their education, income, wealth gaps, and discrimination. With that, there is no data that suggests that any race of people is more susceptible to COVID-19 due to skin tone, sexual orientation, political party, or religious beliefs. So it is important to mention that this pandemic should be taken seriously. Any and all preventive measures should be practiced. Wearing your mask and washing your hands will help you ensure not only your health, but the health of your family and community. And I understand that, you know, some of the directives that were given here in California, you should wear your mask, it's like a law now. And some people say it's going against their rights. What about everyone else's right to not be infected? So if you can imagine how someone like me feels having just buried another family member, please take whatever measures you can to protect yourself and your family and your community. And Pastor, with that concludes our questions for today.
Thank you, Tony. And again, to remind the residents of the city of Paramount that this is not a committee that orders the city to do anything, the council to do anything. We work in conjunction with the city to improve our city relationships with each member of this city. Again, as a long-time Paramount resident, I can truly say that the city's been good to me, and we have seen the progress over the years where we've come from. And I implore all of us to do a better job trying to work with our neighbors, our neighborhoods, to understand that we're all human, we all have feelings, we're all hurt. This city has grown to the point that we can realize, you know, it was America's city at one time. We want to get back to that point, and to know that every citizen in this city has a value stake in this city. So let's protect our city, work with our city officials, work with law enforcement agencies, the fire department, the emergency responders, because we need those folk. And when it comes to defunding the police, no, we do not defund police. We employ police to work and do what they do. We encourage them to hold them to their job. They are family members just like we are. At the end of the day, we'll go home to their families, we'll go home to our families. So let's understand the importance of all of us working together as one unit. Again, we do not make policies for the city. We don't suggest to the city things to make our city better. We're not here to gripe with the city, argue with the city about anything. We're just here to improve the community. With that, we'll say thank you for tuning in. Our next session, we hope to have our Hispanic representatives here with us, and we want to broaden this, but don't think it's just a Black Power thing. It's not a Black Power thing. We're not raising our fists. It's not a Black Power thing. This is a community thing for all of us involved. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone.